Welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Team Creation Series. This one comes to us from Talon, who asked the question, what is the Pokemon team of the Primarch Horus from Warhammer 40k? Now, I am not a Warhammer 40k guy. That would actually be Mark. Mark is the Warhammer 40k guy. He knows a lot more about this lore than me. Should he see this video, Mark, I hope you're kind with my selection for this guy's Pokemon team based on how I describe them on, because Mark is aware of the original 150 and is aware that other Pokemon exist. He was never a big Pokemon guy, unlike me. But he is a big Warhammer 40k, so it'd be great if we could, if we could have merged on this collab. It actually would have been pretty cool. But Mark's real busy, so I don't, very rarely, once in a blue moon, Mark still appears on this channel, like in person. Anyway, I digress. So the Primarch, the way the Primarchs are described is there was about 20 of them that were genetically engineered super soldiers, more or less. And I'm simplifying it, but super soldiers and beyond super soldiers. Like you get Space Marines are already genetically modified super soldiers in Warhammer. We're talking about like the the top of the top genetically altered super soldiers. And there was about 20 of them that were actually made from the DNA of the Emperor of Mankind, who is, he's the ruler of mankind and has a wide array of abilities that come with that. Horus is essentially kind of like, what did I call? I guess he's kind of the Lucifer in many ways, because he tried to overthrow the Emperor of Mankind, ultimately to be defeated by him. And so, there's a lot more going on, but that was like the gist I got. I tried to get like personality traits or things he might hobby, whatever, but yeah, we're just talking about his exploits, all that. So I have to go off of that when we're dealing with his Pokemon team, as well as a little bit of the equipment he wears. In fact, let's actually talk about that part first. So he wields three main things. He wields what's called a Lightning Claw, which is I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see it's his right hand right there, which is this giant razor claw, and they're described as being made of adamantium. They're called lightning claws, though there is no electricity, as far as I can tell, incorporated in there. His, though, is a precursor to something called a storm bolt, because his lightning claw also incorporated automatic weaponry. Well, firearms, anyway. He also wields a power maul, which is basically the giant flail in his hand, which was named, and hold on, I have the name of these things here, 1 second, which was named, what was it named, which was named the World Breaker, which is allegedly made by the Emperor himself, allegedly. And then he has the Serpent Scale armor, which he is wearing as well. So the Horus is one of those guys who could basically just walk onto a battlefield and take on the entire army himself with little issue. That's how powerful a lot of these Warhammer guys are. Now, only a couple of them, as far as I know, are... I'm sorry, he was one of 21 Primarchs created by the Emperor in the earliest days of the Imperium, not 20. So I got that part wrong. I apologize. But anyway... So yeah, most of the like super soldiers aren't like world enders technically, though they can be. Again, Mark would know a lot more about this lore than me. All I can say is I wanted to try to design a team around his heritage, his weaponry, and a bit of who he was trying to be. So let's look at the weaponry. The Lightning Claw. When I heard Lightning Claw, I'm like, oh, cool. Let's go with a lightning type, electric type Pokemon. Then I actually read what a Lightning Claw was. I'm like, that doesn't quite work out. So how the hell am I going to do that? And there really isn't much because there's no adamantium in the Pokemon world. And there aren't a lot of Pokemon steel types, particularly, that really work in the same vein as a Lightning Claw. So instead, I went back to the electric type, and I went with Zeraora. Because it has the ability Plasma Fist, it essentially has lightning claws. Now, it's not the exact same thing as what Horus is using, what the Primarch is using, but because he can enhance his cutting power with lightning, I felt it was appropriate enough. You're also going to see a big thing on this team that this is a pretty packed team, at least in terms of who's on the team. let's also just get it out of the way right now. As a being made from the genetics of the Emperor of Mankind, I had to go with Mewtwo, who's made from the genetics of Mew. So Mewtwo is on this team as well. Then we have his Warhammer, not Warhammer, but his Power Maul, World Breaker. Well, luckily we actually have a perfect individual for that. We got Tinkaton. It wields a giant F-off hammer that is used to strike down Corviknights, another steel type. So, in essence, this is about as good as you're getting with that. I don't think you can get much better than that. I was trying to think of, unless I like throw an actual steel type into the mix, that just in and of itself is the Maw, in and of itself is World Breaker, I don't think I'm getting any closer than that. Last but not least is the Serpent Scale, or his Battle Armor. Now that was a little trickier to think of because I wanted to try to find a mod who's, in essence, covered in something, like their main body is wrapped in something that acts as protective armor. But the unfortunate truth of that is there are not a lot of mod who really work that way. There are a couple. You could do Toxapeck. You could definitely do Toxapeck. Toxapeck I don't think really worked in this case though. The poison type Baneful Bunker, that didn't work for me. There's also, you can also do Hatterini or Reuniclus, which are both technically wrapped up, but that didn't work either, particularly because Hatterini's body is still technically its body. It's just, its main body is still just wrapped up. Beyond that, there's really not much. I mean, you could do Wishy-Washy, but Wishy-Washy, I wouldn't do. That is a really weird one. Because technically, is it just hiding in the middle of that? Or is it a bunch of them came together? It all seems to have one sentient consciousness here. So, I don't know. All I do know is I decided to instead go with one that is so armored, it's usually described as not being able to be hurt. And I went with Tyranitar for that. Its dark typing also hey, I'm in your crotch, Mewtwo. Its dark typing also lends itself well to this because dark typing is considered the evil type in Japan. And the Primarch definitely leaned towards the evil side of things because he was trying to overthrow the Emperor. Now, to be fair, maybe the Emperor needs to be overthrown. But that's not really what we're looking at here. We're looking at more of the armor and a representation of that. And Tyranitar's armor is said to not be able to be damaged. So there's that. Beyond that, though, if you're looking at a tyrant who's you're willing to throw away the lives of God knows how many, you also got to include a Tyrantrum on the team, as he is, the Tyrant King. Basically, he's based off a T-Rex, and his name is Tyrantrum. So I felt that was appropriate. But last but not least, because him and many other Marines in Warhammer are genetically modified with cybernetics and everything along those lines, I went with a genetically modified Pokemon in Genesect. It's a Pokemon that makes a lot of sense in the sense of genetic modification and cybernetics mixed together. And now you're maybe saying, well, that's what, it's one legendary, 2 mythics. But let's just call them legendary. 3 legendary-esque Pokemon plus 1 pseudo and 2 very powerful mon in their own right. No pre-evolutions all like I sometimes do, and the answer is that's exactly what this is. Due to the fact that, yes, so I don't pick Mon based on a complete team. I pick Mon based on what the representation is. So if that's an evolved Mon or an unevolved Mon, so be it. But more to the point, because he's the Primarch and he's one of the strongest guys around, at least during his time, it would make sense all his Mon would either be legendary or fully evolved. Which now brings us to the big question here of how balanced is this team? And I went over the weaknesses of this team. This team actually is pretty well balanced. Most of these Mon don't really have a shared weakness with each other. Tyranitar does have a top quad 4 weakness to fighting, and Tyrantrum's rock type does get hurt a little bit by that, but the dragon type for him and the fairy type for Tinkaton help mitigate that factor. Other than that, though, I'm looking through this, I'm like, there's only one shared weakness, really, between any of these guys. And that, unfortunately, is ground. Ground wrecks this team's shop. because Tyrantrum, being a rock type, already is weak to ground, and dark has no special resistances. Ground is the only weakness for Zeraora. Steel is weak to ground, so both Genesect and Tinkaton both have issues with ground, and I don't believe either resist ground. And then Tyrantrum is also part rock, which means it's going to struggle with ground as well. The only one who's got a straight, clear weakness would be Tyrantrum and Zeraora, but that's not the point. The point is ground can hurt 5 out of 6 of these Pokemon outright on some level. And so, yeah, otherwise, Mewtwo's got all the standard weaknesses of a mono psychic type. Genesect, being a bug steel type, is going to get wrecked by fire types. Like I said, fighting types for Tyrantrum, ground types for Zeraora, Fairy and Dragon for Tyrantrum. Other than that, though, Tyrantrum really doesn't have an actual weakness, apart from maybe ground. Water, it's going to resist, although it still will be hurt. And it's definitely going to resist grass. And then Tinkaton's the unique one, because Fairy Steel is a very powerful typing. There's really not much that hurts Fairy Steel. Because Steel gets rid of Fairy's weakness to, gets rid of its weakness to poison. And it makes it resistant to its weakness to Steel. And then Fairy makes Steel somewhat more resistant to fire. Not 100%, but somewhat more resistant to fire. Fairy does resist fire. It doesn't do anything for the ground weakness, but it does make it immune to Dragon, which it already resisted anyway. And fighting type, it also makes it more resistant to. So yeah, Fairy Steel is oftentimes considered one of the best typings you can get. So yeah, this is, though, my opinion, the team for the Primarch Horus. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you know more about 40K than I do? And if you do, who would you put on the team if you disagree with this team? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you folks next time.